Bride reveals she has cancer at the altar. Groom's reaction shocks everyone. 200 guests eagerly awaited the vows between Emily Parker and Nathan Thompson, considered the perfect couple by friends and family. Then, as Emily stood before the officiant beside Nathan, she slowly lifted her veil. A tomb-like silence filled the room. Instead of the long brown hair everyone knew, the bride revealed a completely shaved head. Her flawless makeup only heightened the impact of her revelation. "Before I say yes," she began, her voice trembling but determined, "I need everyone to know the truth. Nathan, I couldn't tell you before, but I have cancer. I found out 3 months ago and I start treatment tomorrow." Nathan, a 33-year-old civil engineer, brought his hands to his head in absolute shock. Murmurs rippled through the hall as his expression shifted between surprise and confusion. His mother, Mrs. Patricia, quickly rose from her seat in the front row. "How could you hide something like this?" Nathan whispered, his eyes brimming with tears, loud enough only for Emily and the officiant to hear. "I was afraid," Emily replied, holding back tears. "Afraid of losing you, afraid of being a burden, afraid you'd give up on us." The officiant, sensing the tension, suggested they take a moment to speak privately. The guests watched in stunned silence as the couple stepped into an adjacent room, followed by Emily's maid of honor, Jessica, her childhood friend, and the only person who knew about her diagnosis. In the small anteroom, Emily broke down in tears as she tried to explain. "The doctor said it's early-stage lymphoma. My chances are good, but I'll need intensive chemotherapy. I shaved my head last night because it would have fallen out. Anyway, I was going to tell you after the honeymoon." "After?" Nathan looked hurt. "How could you keep something so important from me? We promised honesty from day one, Emily." Jessica intervened. "She was protecting you, Nathan, and herself too. Think how hard these months of planning have been, with everyone so happy." "So you knew?" Nathan's accusing gaze turned to Jessica. "And you didn't think I should know either?" "It wasn't my secret to tell," Jessica defended. As they argued, Mrs. Patricia entered the room without knocking, her face a mask of concern, and something else, almost like relief. "Son, we need to cancel everything. The guests are confused. This is a scandal." Nathan took a deep breath, visibly trying to process it all. After a few endless seconds, he looked straight at his mother. "No one is canceling anything." Turning to Emily, he took her hands in his. "I wish you had trusted me. That hurts more than anything. But if there's one thing I learned from my father before he left us, it's that love isn't just for the happy times." The mention of Nathan's father, who had passed after a long battle with heart disease 5 years earlier, silenced everyone in the room. Nathan rarely spoke of it. "Tomorrow I'll be with you at the hospital," he continued. "And every day after that. But today, if you still want to, I'd very much like to become your husband." Emily's eyes, lined with makeup that miraculously held against her tears, shone with a mix of surprise and relief. "Are you sure? This isn't what you signed up for when you proposed." "In sickness and in health, remember," Nathan replied, attempting a smile. "I just didn't expect we'd get to the sickness part so soon." When they returned to the altar, the murmurs quieted. Nathan asked for a moment before the officiant resumed the ceremony and addressed the guests. "Friends and family, I know everyone is surprised. I am too. But today is about true love and commitment. Emily's illness doesn't change how I feel about her. It just makes it clearer how much we need each other right now." Among the guests, reactions varied. Some wept with emotion, others seemed uncomfortable, and there were those who clearly disapproved of continuing the ceremony. On social media, discreet messages were already being exchanged, and the unusual story was beginning to spread beyond the walls of that hall. The ceremony continued, more emotionally charged than anyone could have predicted. When the officiant finally declared them husband and wife, the couple's kiss was met with hesitant applause that soon turned into a heartfelt ovation. During the reception, Aunt Sharon, Nathan's father's sister and a renowned oncologist at Memorial Medical Center, discreetly approached the couple. "Emily, who's handling your case?" "Dr. William Roberts, at Mercy Hospital." "I know William, he's competent," Sharon said. "But I want you to come see me on Monday. We have some experimental protocols at Memorial that might be suitable for your case, depending on the details." That conversation brought a small additional ray of hope to the couple. However, on the other side of the hall, Mrs. Patricia was speaking on the phone in a hushed tone that didn't match her tense expression. "Deborah, you won't believe what happened. That girl has deceived my son all this time. How can I accept a daughter-in-law who starts a marriage with such a huge lie? Nathan is making a terrible mistake, but he's always been as stubborn as his father." Amanda, Nathan's cousin, passed by at that moment and heard enough to understand the situation. With a disapproving glance at her aunt, she walked toward the couple. At the end of the party, much more subdued than originally planned, Emily and Nathan didn't leave for the romantic honeymoon in Hawaii they had dreamed of for months. Instead, they went to their newly decorated apartment in Williamsburg, where they would spend the night before Emily's first chemotherapy session the next morning. Once home, as Nathan put away the gifts they had brought with them, he found an envelope he hadn't seen before. Inside was a handwritten letter from his father, written 5 years earlier, with instructions to be delivered on his wedding day. How it had gotten there, he had no idea. Perhaps his mother, despite her obvious disapproval of the marriage under these circumstances, had honored her late husband's final wish. "My son," the letter read, "on the day you choose to unite your life with someone, remember that true love isn't about perfect moments, but how we face the imperfect ones together. Your mother and I had many of those moments, and looking back, they're the ones I'm most proud to have shared with her. Whatever challenge life puts in your path, face it with your head held high and your heart open. I'm proud of the man you've become. With love, Dad." Nathan sat on the edge of the bed, where Emily had already fallen asleep exhausted, and allowed himself to cry silently, the letter in his hands. The next morning, the first day of their married life, wouldn't be as they had planned. There would be no seaside breakfast or swims in crystal-clear waters. Instead, there would be a hospital room, doctors, and the start of a battle neither of them had expected to face so soon, or together. As they got ready to leave, Emily's phone rang. It was Jessica. "How are you? Did you sleep at all?" "A little," Emily replied. "We're heading to the hospital now. I'm coming to meet you there. I don't want you two to go through this alone." "Thank you, but I think we need this moment just for ourselves. I'll call you later, okay?" Nathan watched Emily end the call. She seemed different this morning, not just because of her missing hair, but there was a new determination in her eyes. "Ready?" he asked, extending his hand. "I'll never truly be ready for this, but let's go." At the hospital, as they waited in the lobby, Nathan held Emily's hand tightly. Several people glanced discreetly at them. She still wearing the gleaming wedding band from a marriage celebrated less than 24 hours ago. He with deep dark circles from a sleepless night. Dr. William Roberts greeted them with a gentle smile. That didn't quite reach his worried eyes. "Married yesterday and chemotherapy today. Not how most couples start, huh?" "We didn't have a choice about the chemotherapy," Nathan replied, "but the marriage was our choice no matter what." The doctor nodded, respecting that show of commitment. "Then let's get to it. We have the full biopsy results, and unfortunately, the lymphoma is a bit more aggressive than we initially thought." Emily squeezed Nathan's hand so hard it almost hurt. Her face paled, but she kept her composure. "What does that mean, doctor?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. "It means we'll need a more intensive protocol. Not just chemotherapy, but targeted radiation too, and the treatment period may extend beyond the 6 months we originally projected." Nathan felt as if the air had been sucked from the room. 6 months was already daunting. How much longer would it be? Would they be celebrating their first anniversary still in the middle of treatments? "I called your aunt just yesterday, Nathan," the doctor continued. "Dr. Sharon told me about your conversation at the wedding. We agree Emily would be a strong candidate for the experimental protocol they're developing at Memorial Medical Center. It could significantly increase her chances of full remission." Emily looked at Nathan, a spark of hope lighting her eyes. "That's good, isn't it?" "Yes and no," the doctor answered honestly. "The treatment is more promising, but also more aggressive. The side effects will be intense, Emily. And there's an additional complication we need to discuss. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing. What complication? Nathan asked, bracing himself for more difficult news. The protocol requires intensive treatment for the first 3 months with frequent hospitalizations. That means your life as a couple will be heavily impacted right at the start of your marriage. They both nodded, absorbing the information. The doctor then explained the treatment plan in detail, the medications, likely side effects, and the preliminary schedule that would guide them through the coming months. As they left the office, a heavy silence hung between Emily and Nathan. In the car, she finally broke it. You didn't sign up for this, Nathan. No one plans to start a marriage like this. She hesitated, fighting back tears. If you want to reconsider, I'd understand. Nathan abruptly pulled the car over and turned to face her. Emily, look at me. I'm not going anywhere. Not yesterday, not today, not tomorrow. Understood? But it's going to be awful. I'll be weak, sick, bald. Well, that part's already done. She tried a fragile smile. We'll have to postpone all our plans, the apartment renovation, that trip to Canada you wanted so badly. We'll do all of it, just later, when you're well. And if I don't— No, Nathan cut in firmly. Don't even finish that sentence. We'll get through this together and then we'll have a whole life ahead of us. That evening, Nathan insisted on making dinner, even though the fridge was practically empty. He improvised some tuna pasta with herbs he found in the cupboard, while Emily rested on the couch, already feeling the first effects of the medication she'd taken earlier. It's not exactly gourmet, but it'll do, he joked, placing the plate in front of her. Thank you, Emily replied, though without much appetite. You know, there's one thing I still don't understand. What? Why weren't you angrier with me for hiding the illness? I lied to you for 3 months, Nathan. He sat beside her, thoughtful. I was hurt, of course, and I'm still processing everything. But I understand your fear, Emily. I don't agree with the decision you made, but I understand. You're an incredible man, you know that? She whispered, leaning her head against his shoulder. And you're the strongest woman I've ever known, he replied, gently kissing her forehead. The next morning, while Emily still slept, Nathan received a message from the real estate agency. The final inspection of the apartment they'd bought together was scheduled for the following week. It would be the last step before their permanent move, planned to happen right after their honeymoon. How could they balance all these practical obligations with the new reality they faced? Nathan knew he'd also need to completely reorganize his professional plans. As the engineer in charge of an important commercial project in downtown New York City, he couldn't simply abandon his responsibilities, but he also didn't want to leave Emily alone during crucial moments. The doorbell interrupted his thoughts. When he opened the door, he found Mrs. Patricia, his mother, holding a basket of fruit, bread, and other groceries. I figured you wouldn't have time to go shopping, she said in a neutral tone, handing the basket to her son. Thanks, Mum, Nathan replied, surprised by the unexpected gesture. Patricia stepped inside, glancing around as if assessing the space. How is she? Tired. The first session was rough. Patricia nodded, sitting in the living room armchair while Nathan carried the basket to the kitchen. Son, you need to be practical now, she began, keeping her voice low. You two have barely started and already face something many couples never deal with, even after decades together. I know that, Mom. Do you really? She pressed, looking at him intently. Because marrying knowing about this situation is very different from finding out later. She took away your right to choose. Nathan felt a flicker of irritation. She was scared, Mom, understandably scared. Understandable, maybe. Acceptable, no. A marriage begins with trust, and this— she gestured vaguely toward the bedroom, where Emily slept. This began with a lie. It wasn't like that. It was exactly like that, Patricia insisted, pulling an envelope from her purse. I didn't want to do this, but you need to think clearly. Here's the contact for a lawyer who specializes in marriage annulments. The circumstances are exceptional, and you could argue there was withholding of vital information. Nathan stared at the envelope as if it were toxic. Have you lost your mind? I'm not annulling my marriage. Not now, of course. Patricia softened her tone. But when the dust settles and you realize what this truly means for your future, I want you to know you have options. Mom, with all due respect, take that envelope away. I love Emily and I'm staying by her side. If you can't support our decision, at least respect it. Patricia sighed, looking genuinely worried. Nathan, I don't want to see you sacrificing your life. You're only 33, and I choose to spend the rest of it with Emily in sickness and in health, exactly like when Dad stayed by your side when you needed 3 surgeries in a row after that accident. Or have you forgotten how he never left? You? The mention of her late husband made Mrs. Patricia visibly recoil. After a long silence, she stood up. I haven't forgotten. I'll never forget, she said, her voice slightly trembling. Do what you think is best, son. I just don't want you saying later that no one warned you. After her mother left, Nathan stood motionless in the living room for several minutes, trying to control his frustration. The sound of the bedroom door opening startled him. How much of the conversation had Emily overheard? Did your mother already leave? She asked, appearing in the living room wrapped in a robe. Yes, she just brought some things for us, he replied, omitting the unpleasant part of the visit. That's good. Emily smiled weakly. I thought she'd still be upset after yesterday. She'll get over it, Nathan said, walking over to his wife and carefully embracing her. How are you feeling? Like I've been hit by a truck, but I'll survive. That casual remark carried immense weight for both of them. Yes, survival was exactly what was at stake now. In the weeks that followed, the couple's routine completely revolved around Emily's treatment. Nathan arranged a special work setup, allowing him to manage some projects remotely, while Jessica and Emily's other friends organized a rotation to help on days when Nathan had to be at the construction site. The side effects of the intensive chemotherapy quickly set in. Besides losing all her hair, Emily suffered from persistent nausea, extreme fatigue, and a sensitivity to smells that made even simple meals a challenge. Her once radiant skin took on a grayish pallor, and dark circles began forming under her eyes. The experimental protocol at Memorial Medical Center, overseen by Aunt Sharon, required visits 3 times a week, meaning long hours in New York City's chaotic traffic. The costs of complementary medications not covered by insurance began straining the couple's budget. A month into treatment, Emily had her first emergency hospitalization due to an opportunistic infection. The high fever and sharp drop in white blood cells kept her in the hospital for 5 days, with Nathan sleeping uncomfortably in a chair beside her bed. It was during this stay that Aunt Sharon called Nathan for a private conversation. We need to assess whether the experimental protocol is doing more harm than good, she explained, showing him Emily's latest test results. The tumor is responding, but her body is suffering greatly. Is there any alternative? Nathan asked, feeling completely lost amid the medical jargon and critical decisions. Yes, we could switch back to the conventional protocol, less aggressive, but also less effective. Long term, Sharon replied frankly. It's a difficult choice between immediate quality of life and chances of full remission. Nathan ran his hand through his hair, a gesture that had become frequent in recent weeks. I don't feel capable of making this decision alone, Sharon. You shouldn't have to. Emily needs to be part of it, of course. I just wanted to prepare. You first, because she's emotionally fragile. When he returned to the room, Nathan found Emily awake, looking more alert than in previous days. Hey, you seem better, he remarked, sitting on the edge of the bed and taking her hand in his. The fever's completely gone, she replied with a small smile. The antibiotics are working. Great. Did Sharon stop by? Yes, she said I'll be discharged tomorrow if the tests keep improving. Emily paused, studying her husband's expression. You two talked about something else, didn't you? Nathan hesitated, but knew they needed to face the situation together. Yes, she's worried about how your body is reacting to the experimental protocol. She said we need to consider other options. Emily closed her eyes for a moment, absorbing the information. I've been thinking about that too. It's so hard. When we chose the most aggressive treatment, I was determined to fight with everything I had. But I never imagined it would be this devastating. We couldn't have known. The worst part is, even with all this suffering, I don't know if I can choose a less effective treatment. What if the cancer comes back? What if we miss this window of opportunity? The anguish in her voice was palpable. Nathan gently squeezed her hand. Let's talk to the whole medical team tomorrow, okay? Weigh all the pros and cons. We don't have to decide anything right now. That night, as Emily finally managed to sleep for a few hours straight, Nathan stepped into the hospital hallway and called his friend Brian, the only one he trusted, completely to confide in. Man, I don't know if I can handle this, he admitted in a rare moment of vulnerability. Seeing her suffer like this every day is destroying me. You're doing everything you can, Nathan, Brian replied. No one could ask for more. Sometimes I wonder if she'd be better off if we'd postponed the wedding. I'm so overwhelmed. Between work and taking care of her, I'm afraid I'm not giving her the support she deserves. Don't beat yourself up like that. Your decision was brave, and do you really think she'd be better off facing this alone? No, of course not, Nathan answered quickly. But maybe she could be at her parents' house, with more people to help. My mother-in-law wanted her to do that from the start. And what does Emily say about it? She insists she wants to stay home, with me. Even on days when she can barely get out of bed, she refuses to go to her parents. Then respect her choice, my friend. She needs that sense of normalcy, of building her life with you even in the middle of all this. The conversation with Brian helped Nathan put things into perspective. When he returned to the room, he watched his wife sleeping and promised himself that no matter how hard it got, he wouldn't give up. Not on her, not on them. The next day, the hospital discharge came with a difficult decision. They would continue the experimental protocol, but with adjusted dosages and longer intervals between sessions. It was a compromise Emily and the medical team considered reasonable, given the circumstances. When they got home, they were surprised by a small gathering organized by Jessica and other close friends. The apartment was clean, homemade food was in the fridge, and there were even some new plants on the balcony. A touch Emily had always wanted but never had time to arrange. We thought you could use a little normalcy and love, Jessica explained, carefully hugging her friend. That gesture meant a lot to the couple, especially at a time when financial strain was starting to weigh on them. The medical costs not covered by insurance, combined with Nathan's reduced hours at work, were quickly eating into the savings they'd set aside for renovating their new apartment. 2 weeks later, as they sorted through bills over the weekend, Nathan had to broach a delicate subject. Emily, I think we need to reconsider moving to the new apartment. She looked up from the papers she was reviewing. Why, it's our dream. Yes, but the costs are way beyond what we expected. The treatment, the additional medications, the constant trips to the hospital. If we go through with the move, we'll be too financially vulnerable. Emily was silent for a few moments, visibly disappointed, but nodded. You're right. It would be irresponsible to go through with this now. We can revisit our plans once all this is over, assured Nathan, hating to see the sadness in her eyes. If all this is over, Emily corrected softly. It was the first time she had voiced her uncertainty about the future so clearly. Nathan knelt beside the chair where she sat. When, not if. We'll get through this, Emily. One day at a time, remember. She nodded, forcing a small smile. One day at a time. That week, Nathan contacted the real estate agency to check if they could postpone the property purchase or, at worst, cancel it even if it meant losing part of their investment. To his surprise, the agent was understanding when Nathan explained the situation. My wife was diagnosed with cancer right before our wedding. We're redirecting all our resources to her treatment. I'm so sorry to hear that, the agent replied, genuinely dismayed. I'll speak with the owner. Maybe we can arrange something that doesn't hurt you too much. That small act of humanity in the middle of a business negotiation meant a lot to Nathan, who had been surrounded by difficult news and tough decisions. Sometimes little gestures of understanding made all the difference. The following month, another complication arose. Nathan's company secured an important contract for a project in Chicago, requiring his presence for at least 2 weeks. Under normal circumstances, it would have been a great career opportunity, but now it felt like a cruel twist of fate. You have to go. Emily insisted when he mentioned turning it down. "Your career matters. We can't put everything on hold indefinitely. I don't want to leave you alone." "I won't be alone. Jessica already offered to stay with me, and so did my mom. Plus, those 2 weeks fall right between chemo cycles, when I usually feel a bit better." Nathan still hesitated. "But what if there's an emergency?" "Chicago isn't another planet, Nathan." Emily smiled, trying to ease the tension. "You can hop on a plane and be here in a few hours if it's really necessary." After much deliberation and reassurance from the medical team that Emily would be in a relatively stable phase of treatment, Nathan agreed to the trip. He organized everything meticulously, a detailed schedule of medication times, doctor's appointments, and emergency contacts, stocking the house with supplies, even pre-made meals for days when Emily wouldn't feel like cooking. The night. Before his departure, as Nathan finished packing, Jessica arrived to stay in the guest room. While they talked in the kitchen, Emily rested in the bedroom, still recovering from her latest chemo session. "Are you going to be okay?" Jessica asked, watching her friend closely. "Me? I'm not the one who's sick, Jess." "No, but you're carrying a huge weight, and now you'll be far away, worrying, unable to see how she's doing with your own eyes." Nathan sighed, acknowledging the truth in her words. "That's the hardest part, but I also know I need to keep my job. The treatment costs keep rising." "We'll take good care of her," Jessica promised, "and I'll send you daily updates, I swear." The next morning, saying goodbye was harder than Nathan had expected. Emily, determined not to show sadness, kept a forced smile. "It's just 2 weeks, it'll fly by. Call me any time, no matter the hour," Nathan insisted, holding her gently. "Promise?" "I promise. Now go, or you'll miss your flight." At the airport, waiting to board, Nathan got a text from his mother, asking to talk. The tone was conciliatory, unlike the tense interactions they'd had since the wedding. He replied that he'd call as soon as he arrived at the hotel in Chicago. When he finally made the call hours later, Patricia seemed genuinely remorseful about her earlier stance. "I spoke with your Aunt Sharon," she explained. "She told me how Emily is facing all this with dignity, and how the two of you are united despite the difficulties. Perhaps I judged too hastily." His mother's change of attitude took Nathan by surprise. "What exactly did Sharon tell you?" "That Emily refused less aggressive treatment, even knowing she'd suffer more, because she wants the best chance at a future with you. That she's more concerned about how you're handling all this than her own pain." Patricia paused. "It reminded me of myself when your father fell ill." That comparison, coming from his mother who rarely spoke about his father's illness, meant a great deal. "So you understand now?" "I'm trying, son. It's not easy seeing you go through this, but I recognize the strength of what you two have together," Patricia admitted. "In fact, I'd like to help during your trip. I can take turns with Jessica caring for Emily, if she agrees." "That would be wonderful, Mom," Nathan replied, moved by the unexpected offer. "I won't promise we'll become best friends overnight, but I'll do my best to support her, for you, and because it's the right thing to do." That conversation brought Nathan immense relief. Knowing his mother was finally accepting Emily and willing to help lifted a weight from his already burdened shoulders. The first days in Chicago were a mix of intense work and constant worry. Nathan called home 3 times a day, receiving frequent updates from Jessica and surprisingly from his mother too, who seemed genuinely trying to build a relationship with Emily. On the 4th day, however, he got an alarming call from Jessica. "Nathan, I don't want to scare you, but Emily has had a high fever since last night, 101.3 degrees, and it won't go down. I called Dr. Roberts and he said to bring her to the hospital immediately." "I'm booking the first flight back," Nathan replied immediately, his heart racing. "Wait, don't panic. Sharon is already at the hospital waiting for us, and your mum is here with me. We'll keep you updated every step of the way." "Jessica, is it febrile neutropenia?" Nathan asked, referring to the common complication in chemotherapy patients when white blood cell counts drop dangerously low and opportunistic infections strike. "Probably, but we won't know for sure until the tests come back," Jessica answered honestly. "Emily is conscious and lucid, just very feverish and weak." Even with Jessica's reassurances, Nathan couldn't focus on work. He explained the situation to his supervisor, who understood the gravity. "Family comes first, Nathan. We'll rearrange things here. Take the next flight." As he rushed to the airport, Nathan received updates by text. Emily had been admitted, and the doctors started broad-spectrum antibiotics immediately without waiting for culture results. Her neutrophil count was dangerously low, confirming their initial suspicions. During the 2-hour flight, Nathan felt an anguish he'd never experienced before. The helplessness of being miles away while his wife faced a medical crisis was devastating. He alternated between moments of silent prayer, something he hadn't done regularly since adolescence, and practical plans for how to rearrange their lives to better care for Emily from then on. When he landed in New York City, he went straight to the hospital where he found Jessica, his mother, and Emily's parents in the waiting room. "How is she?" he asked, panting from running so much. "Stabilized," replied Mr. Parker. "Emily's father. The fever started to go down with the antibiotics. Can I see her?" "The doctors are with her now," explained Mrs. Margaret, Emily's mother, her eyes showing the toll of sleepless nights. "They said we'll be able to go in soon, one at a time." Nathan hugged his in-laws, with whom he'd always had a cordial, though not especially close, relationship. It was strange yet comforting to see all these people united for Emily's well-being. When he was finally allowed into the room, Nathan found his wife hooked up to monitors with a central IV line delivering medication. Despite her obvious fragility, her eyes lit up when she saw him. "You shouldn't have come back," she murmured, trying to smile. "As if I could stay away," he replied, leaning in to kiss her forehead. "How are you feeling?" "Better now that the fever's gone." "Down, but the doctor said I'll need to stay a few days until my white blood cells reach a safe level." Nathan nodded, having been through a similar situation before. "I'll stay here with you." "What about the project in Chicago?" "I can. Consult remotely. The main part is already finished." Emily closed her eyes for a moment, clearly exhausted. "Your mom has been amazing, you know. She and Jessica barely left my side since you left." "Really?" Nathan couldn't hide his surprise. "My mom? I think she's finally accepted me." Emily tried to laugh, but it came out as a weak cough. "Get some rest," Nathan whispered, stroking her hand. "I'm here now." When Emily fell asleep, Nathan stepped out to speak with the doctors and get a clearer understanding of the situation. Dr. William Roberts explained that the infection was serious, but responding well to treatment. However, there would be consequences for the chemotherapy schedule. "We'll need to delay the next cycle until she fully recovers," the doctor said. "This might extend the overall treatment beyond what we initially planned." "But won't that affect its effectiveness?" Nathan asked, concerned. "Potentially a little, but pushing forward with the original schedule while her body is so weak would do more harm. It's a delicate balance we have to strike." In the following days, a hospital routine settled in. Nathan practically moved into Emily's room, working remotely on his laptop during the day and sleeping in the uncomfortable chair beside her bed at night. Emily's parents, Jessica and Mrs. Patricia, took turns bringing him decent meals and offering brief breaks. Though frightening, this hospitalization ended up bringing the extended family closer. Mrs. Patricia and Mrs. Margaret, initially distant, developed a kind of partnership in caring for the young couple. Mr. Parker and Nathan spent long hours talking about hope and resilience, forming a deeper connection than they'd ever had before. After a week, Emily was finally discharged, though with an adjusted treatment plan and strict instructions to avoid any risk of reinfection. The chemotherapy delay was made official, potentially extending the total treatment period by 2 months beyond the original timeline. At home, Nathan noticed a change in Emily's behavior. She seemed more withdrawn, less willing to make plans or discuss the future. At first, he chalked it up to exhaustion and recent struggles, but after a few days, he sensed something deeper was going on. One evening, as they watched a movie in the living room, he paused it and turned to face her. "What's going on, Emily? You seem distant." She hesitated, twisting the edge of the blanket covering her legs. "It's just tiredness." "No, it's more than that." You barely talk about the future. You changed the subject 3 times when I mentioned plans for when the treatment ends. Nathan paused. Do you no longer believe you'll get better? Emily looked up, her eyes shining with unshed tears. What if I don't get better, Nathan? What if all this suffering is for nothing? We're already delaying. Cycles, adjusting doses. The doctors said that's normal, that we need to adapt the treatment to your body. I know, but... She took a deep breath. Every time I look in the mirror, I see someone I don't recognize anymore. I'm tired of being a patient, of being the wife with cancer. Nathan stepped closer, taking her hands in his. You're so much more than that. You're the woman I love, the talented architect who'll go back to creating amazing designs, the person who laughs at my terrible jokes. A small smile appeared on her face. Your jokes really are awful. See? Only you appreciate my questionable sense of humor, he teased, happy to see a glimpse of the Emily he knew. But seriously, I understand your fear. Just don't let it define who you are or who we are together. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing, that conversation marked a turning point for the couple. In the days that followed, Emily began speaking more openly about her fears and insecurities, allowing Nathan to truly understand the emotional battle she was fighting inside. In turn, he also admitted his own vulnerabilities, the constant fear of losing her, the financial pressure, the physical and mental exhaustion he couldn't always hide. It was as if they had rediscovered the importance of complete honesty, the kind that had been momentarily forgotten when Emily chose to hide her initial diagnosis. With the extension of the treatment, it became clear their financial situation would require even tougher decisions. After careful calculations, they concluded they couldn't keep the apartment they had bought, even with the flexible arrangement offered by the real estate agency. We'll have to sell, Nathan concluded, showing Emily the spreadsheets. There's no other way. The treatment costs will continue for at least 4 more months and our savings are almost gone. Emily looked at the numbers with surprising calm. You know what's strange? A few months ago, this news would have devastated me. That apartment represented our perfect future, all our dreams. But now, it just feels like a place, a set of walls and windows. What changed? Nathan asked, intrigued. I did, she replied, intertwining her fingers with his. I've realized the future isn't in an address or a blueprint. It's here. In every day I get to live by your side. The apartment sold surprisingly fast, though for less than the ideal price. The money provided the financial relief they desperately needed, allowing them to focus entirely on Emily's recovery without the constant pressure of bills. 4 months after the emergency hospitalization, a new set of tests brought cautiously positive news. The tumor had significantly shrunk and there were no signs of metastasis. It wasn't full remission yet, but undeniable progress. Does this mean the treatment is working? Emily asked, gripping Nathan's hand tightly as Dr. Roberts explained the results. Yes, you're responding very well, the doctor confirmed. Considering the complications we've had, the adjustments we needed to make, these results are extremely encouraging. How much longer for treatment? Nathan asked. At least 2 more full cycles, possibly 3. The doctor replied. I want to make sure we've eliminated all the cancer cells, but we can start discussing post-treatment. Those words, post-treatment, sounded almost unreal to the couple. For so long, their lives had been entirely defined by the illness, and the fight against it, that the possibility of a future beyond that seemed like a distant dream. As they left the doctor's office that day, Emily suggested something unexpected. Let's take a walk in the park. It's a beautiful day. It was a simple invitation, but a meaningful one. Over the last 6 months, they had rarely gone out, just to enjoy a moment together, without the purpose of medical appointments or practical matters to address. In Central Park, they found a bench under a large tree and sat side by side, watching people jog, walk their dogs, or simply enjoy the mild afternoon sun. Can you believe our first wedding anniversary is coming up? Emily remarked, resting her head on Nathan's shoulder. Already, he replied, genuinely surprised at how quickly time had passed. even though each day had felt like an eternity amid the struggles. "Yes, in 3 weeks," she smiled. "It's been a very different first year than we imagined, hasn't it?" "Completely," Nathan agreed, "but we survived together." "More than survived," Emily corrected, turning to look him in the eyes. "We discovered the true meaning of those vows we exchanged. In sickness and in health, it wasn't just a pretty phrase." Nathan caressed her face, noticing a new sparkle in her eyes that he hadn't seen in a long time. "You don't regret it, marrying me even after the diagnosis?" "Sometimes I regret not telling you sooner," Emily admitted, "but marrying you, never. It was the best decision I've ever made." That evening, when they returned to their apartment, Emily surprised Nathan by pulling a notebook from her desk drawer. "I started this at the hospital during my last stay," she explained, handing it to him. "I only had the courage to continue after the last test results." Nathan opened the notebook and found architectural sketches of a house, not grand or luxurious like the apartment they'd sold, but cozy and clearly designed for a family. "It's beautiful," he said, flipping through the detailed pages. "For when you go back to work. It's not a professional project," Emily explained, sitting beside him. "It's our home. What I imagine for our future when all of this is over. A simple house in a quiet neighborhood with a backyard for kids to play in." The mention of children made Nathan look up from the drawings. "But what about the doctors?" "They said chemotherapy could affect your fertility. They said it would be difficult, not impossible," Emily replied with a knowing smile. "And besides, there are other ways to build a family, aren't there?" That night marked the beginning of a new chapter for the couple. They still faced treatment and its daily challenges, but now they looked beyond it, envisioning and planning a future that, just a few months earlier, had seemed too uncertain to even mention. In the weeks that followed, Emily's health continued to improve gradually. The side effects of chemotherapy, though still present, became more manageable. For the first time since the diagnosis, she began regaining some weight, and her energy visibly increased. To celebrate their first wedding anniversary, they agreed not to do anything extravagant, but wanted to mark the occasion in a meaningful way. Nathan suggested dinner at the same restaurant where they'd had their first date 6 years earlier, a simple, cozy place in Little Italy. Emily, who had started wearing colorful scarves instead of worrying about hiding her lack of hair, chose a simple dress that, even loose on her still thin frame, made her feel beautiful again. "Need a ride to the restaurant, Mrs. Thompson?" Nathan teased, offering her his arm as she stepped out of the bedroom all dressed up. "With pleasure, Mr. Thompson," she replied, playing along. The restaurant was nearly empty on a Tuesday night, giving them a quiet and private atmosphere. Unlike the tense mood that often dominated their meals at home, where every bite Emily took was watched with concern by Nathan, here they managed to relax and remember what it was like to simply enjoy each other's company. "A year ago, right. At this moment we were dancing our first dance as a married couple," Nathan recalled. "You looked so beautiful in your dress. And so nervous underneath it," Emily added. "Remember when you said I looked too tense for a bride? And you said it was just the excitement of the day." "Well, it wasn't a complete lie," Emily smiled. "I was genuinely excited, besides being terrified of what would come next." Nathan took a sip of his wine before asking, "If you could go back in time, what would you do differently?" Emily thought for a moment. "I would have trusted you from the start. All that fear of being rejected, of being a burden. I realized I underestimated you, our love. And I probably would have pushed even harder to postpone the wedding and focus on your treatment first," Nathan admitted. "See? That's why I didn't tell you," Emily joked, though they both knew there was an uncomfortable truth in that statement. "But I think, in the end, we did what needed to be done," Nathan concluded. "Maybe not the ideal way, but we got here, together." At the end of the night, they exchanged simple but meaningful gifts. Nathan gave Emily a delicate silver locket, inside which he had placed a photo of them taken in the park a few weeks earlier, not a perfect picture of an idealized couple, but a real image of two people facing the greatest fight of their lives together. Emily, in turn, handed Nathan a small box containing a key. "What's this?" he asked, confused. "The key to our future," she replied with a mysterious smile. "It's symbolic for now, but one day it'll open the door to the house I designed. For us." That anniversary, though modest, marked an important milestone. It was proof that they had managed to get through the hardest period of their lives not just as individuals, but as a couple united and strengthened by adversity. 2 weeks later, however, a new complication arose. During a routine checkup, Dr. Roberts identified an anomaly in the results that required further investigation. "It might be nothing," he explained cautiously, "but we need to do another biopsy to be sure." The specter of recurrence, which had seemed finally banished, returned to haunt the couple. The days of waiting between the procedure and the results were some of the most agonizing they had ever endured. The uncertainty felt even crueler now that they had truly begun to believe in her recovery. During this time, Emily grew noticeably quiet. She spent hours staring out the window or revising the sketches of her dream house, making small adjustments as if trying to leave something perfect before it was too late. Nathan, sensing her emotional withdrawal, turned to Brian again. "I don't know how to help her this time," he confessed. "It's like she's already preparing for the worst." "Maybe she's just protecting herself," Brian suggested. "It's easier to expect the worst and be surprised by the best than the other way around." "But what if it really is a recurrence?" Nathan's voice faltered. "I don't know if I have the strength to start all over again. The chemotherapy, the hospital stays, seeing her suffer." "Yes, you do," Brian said with conviction, "because the alternative would be giving up on her, and I know you'd never do that." On the day scheduled for the results, the couple arrived at the office holding hands but in silence. The waiting room felt strangely familiar after so many visits. Every chair, every painting on the wall, every outdated magazine on the table, all part of a routine they had learned to endure but never truly accepted as normal. When they finally entered the office, they found not only Dr. William Roberts, but also Aunt Sharon. Their faces gave nothing away, maintaining the professional composure doctors learned to cultivate over the years. "Well, let's get straight to it," began Dr. Roberts, opening a folder with the results. The biopsy showed no signs of active cancer cells. Emily squeezed Nathan's hand so hard it nearly hurt. "Then what caused the anomaly in the test?" "Scar tissue," explained Aunt Sharon, taking over. "It's a normal response from the body to aggressive treatment. That's what showed up on the scan and worried us at first." "So, it's not a recurrence?" Nathan asked, almost afraid to believe. "No," confirmed Dr. Roberts with a genuine smile. "In fact, all the markers indicate we're on the right path to complete remission." Emily covered her face with her hands, her whole body shaking with relieved sobs. Nathan held her tightly, unable to hold back his own tears. "Does this mean we can reduce the treatment?" Emily asked when she finally composed herself. "Yes," replied Aunt Sharon. "We recommend just one more cycle of chemotherapy at a reduced dosage, followed by a period of close monitoring." "And after that?" Nathan asked. "After that, if everything stays as it is, we can declare remission and move to less intensive follow-ups," Dr. Roberts explained. "You'll gradually be able to return to a normal life." Normal life. Those two simple words sounded almost utopian after more than 9 months living entirely for the illness and treatment. As they left the office that day, it felt like they had finally glimpsed light at the end of an endless tunnel. They weren't completely out of it yet, but for the first time they could clearly see the way forward. "Want to go for a drive?" Nathan suggested, reluctant to go straight home after such life-changing news. "Where to?" Emily asked, her face brighter than it had been in months. "To the future," he replied cryptically. They drove for nearly an hour, leaving the city toward a wooded area on the outskirts of New York City. When they finally stopped, they stood before a wide, sloping lot overlooking a small reservoir. "What is this?" Emily asked, confused. "Remember the key you gave me for our anniversary?" Nathan smiled. "Well, we don't have the house yet, but now we have a place to build it." Emily stared in disbelief at the land, then at her husband. "You bought this? How? When?" "Technically, I haven't bought it yet," Nathan explained. "I just put down a deposit. It belongs to Brian's father. who agreed to sell it to us well below market price with special payment terms. He was really moved by our story. But what about the money? I thought we were practically out of savings. Remember the bonus I got for the Chicago project? I used part of it for the deposit. We'll pay the rest little by little once. You're better and back at work too. Emily walked slowly across the lot, trying to take in this enormous surprise. So those sketches, could they become real? Here? If you want them to, Nathan confirmed. It won't happen overnight, of course. It'll take time, we'll have to save up, build it little by little. But yes, this place can be our fresh start. Emily turned slowly, taking in the surroundings, the trees, the open sky, the view stretching as far as the eye could see. Then, without warning, she began to cry. Worried, Nathan rushed to her. Hey, what's wrong? We don't have to decide now if you don't want to. It's not that, she sobbed. It's just, for the first time since the diagnosis, I truly believe I'll live to see this happen. To see our house built, to grow old with you in it. Nathan hugged her, feeling the warmth of the setting sun on their faces. We will, Emily. This is just the first page of a very long story we'll write together. In the weeks that followed, as Emily completed her last round of chemotherapy, the couple began to plan their future in earnest. She revised and refined the blueprints of their dream home, adapting them to the actual plot of land they now owned. Nathan, meanwhile, researched sustainable materials and cost-effective building solutions that would allow them to complete the project gradually, within their financial means. The last day of chemotherapy was celebrated with a small gathering of only their closest loved ones, both sets of parents, Jessica, Brian, and Aunt Sharon, who had become far more than just a doctor to them. It was a quiet celebration, everyone aware that the road to full recovery would still be long, but it was also filled with hope and gratitude. Mrs. Patricia, whose transformation over those months had been nearly as remarkable as Emily's, brought a special gift, a photo album documenting the couple's journey since their wedding. There were pictures of difficult moments in the hospital, but also of small joys, an impromptu picnic in the room during a hospital stay, Nathan dozing awkwardly in the chair beside Emily's bed, their wedding anniversary, and finally, the land where they would build their future. So you never forget how strong you are together and apart, Patricia said as she handed them the album. 3 months after finishing chemotherapy, Emily's hair began to grow back, short, darker, and with a different texture than before, but a physical symbol of the rebirth she was undergoing. Her energy gradually returned, allowing her to resume simple activities that once seemed impossible, like short walks or the occasional dinner out. Follow-up tests continued to show positive results, and the word remission began to be mentioned by the doctors, though with necessary caution. Nathan, who had fully adapted to the role of caregiver, now faced the challenge of recalibrating his relationship with Emily. Both needed to rediscover how to be a normal couple again, without the constant dynamic of patient and caregiver that had defined their first year of marriage. Sometimes I catch you watching me like I might fall apart any second, Emily remarked one evening as they prepared dinner together, something she had recently started doing again. Sorry, it's hard to turn off protective mode, Nathan admitted. For so long, every little symptom could mean an emergency. I know, and I'm grateful for everything you've done, everything you still do. But I also need to feel normal again, capable, independent. You're right, he agreed, setting the knife aside and turning to face her. I'll try. Just be patient with me, okay? I've got almost a year of habits to unlearn. On a sunny Saturday afternoon, 6 months after treatment ended, Emily and Nathan visited the land where they would build their house once more. This time they weren't alone. They brought Jessica, Brian, and a few other close friends for a small, carefully planned gathering. In the center of the lot, they marked the spot where the living room of their future home would be. There they set up a small makeshift altar with flowers and a simple table covered with a white cloth. We're all curious, Brian remarked, looking around at the improvised decorations. What's the big surprise? Emily and Nathan exchanged knowing glances before she answered. We thought long and hard about how to mark this new beginning in our lives, she explained. And we decided we wanted to renew our vows, right where our home will stand. But this time no secrets, no fears, just love and truth. Their friends watched with emotion as the couple, hand in hand, spoke their promises of love and companionship. Once more, no longer as young idealists dreaming of a perfect future, but as survivors who knew the true value of each day together. A year and a half ago, when I said yes to you, Nathan, I hid a terrible secret beneath my veil, Emily said, her voice steady and clear. Today I have no veil and no secrets, just a certainty stronger than ever, that I want to spend every day of my life with you, building not just this house, but our home, our family, our future. When I said yes to you at that altar, Emily, I had no idea what it truly meant to love in sickness and in health, Nathan replied. I learned the hard way, but also the truest way. And if I could go back in time, I'd say yes 1,000 times over, knowing exactly what we'd face together. After the simple ceremony, as their friends scattered flower seeds across the lot as a symbol of a new beginning, Emily pulled Nathan aside to a more private corner. I have one more surprise, she said, her expression a mix of nervousness and quiet joy. More? He teased. I'm not sure my heart can handle so many emotions in one day. This might be the biggest one of all. Emily paused dramatically. Remember when the doctors said the chemotherapy would likely affect my fertility? Nathan nodded, suddenly attentive. Well, apparently I'm part of that small percentage that defies the odds, she continued, a smile slowly spreading across her face. I'm pregnant, Nathan. I confirmed it yesterday, but I wanted to wait until today to tell you. For a moment, Nathan stood completely still, as if his brain needed extra time to process the news. Then, wordlessly, he hugged Emily so tightly he nearly lifted her off the ground. Are you sure? Did the doctors confirm everything's okay? He finally asked when he found his voice. Yes, I did all the tests, Emily assured him. It's a miracle, they said, after everything my body went through. But it's happening. We're going to be parents, Nathan. As the sun began to set over the lot where their home would one day stand, Emily and Nathan shared the news with their friends and family. The hugs, tears, and celebrations that followed were the perfect culmination of a journey that had begun. In the most unlikely way, with a shocking revelation at a wedding altar, the future that once seemed so uncertain now stretched before them, not as an easy or guaranteed path, but as a real and tangible possibility. A house to build, a child, to raise, a whole life to live together. End of story. Dear listeners, if this story touched your heart, share your feelings in the comments. What would you do in Nathan's place upon discovering the truth at the altar? Don't forget to leave your like and subscribe to the channel for more stories celebrating the power of true love amid life's challenges.